She left without making a scene. No slamming doors. No shattered dishes. No tearful ultimatum while the neighbors pressed their ears against the wall. She walked out of their 24th floor condo on a January night with 2 suitcases, her laptop bag over one shoulder, and the calm of a woman who had finally made up her mind. Her husband laughed. He stood in the kitchen with a glass of water and laughed. Not cruelly, which almost made it worse, as if she'd said something amusing before moving on to more important things. "You'll be back in 6 months," he said. "You don't know how the real world works without me, babe." The elevator doors closed. He didn't follow. But before we talk about where Tiana Brooks ended up, you need to understand where she started and what it cost her to stay as long as she did. Before we continue, if you want to uncover what happens next in this shocking tale and never miss another jaw-dropping twist, hit that subscribe button and ring the bell right now. This support helps this channel bring you even more insane stories like this. Now let's jump deep into the story. Ryan Caldwell was the kind of man who filled a room. Confident, well-dressed, fluent in the language of ambition. He built luxury real estate across Chicago's North Side and spoke about his work the way other men spoke about religion, with certainty, passion, and the quiet assumption that everyone else was a believer. Tiana had believed once. She managed the operations behind his projects, not the way Ryan managed them, with handshakes at investor dinners and his name in press releases. She managed them the way a foundation is managed, invisibly, bearing enormous weight without anyone stopping to appreciate the load. She coordinated with city planners. She built contractor relationships. She navigated compliance requirements that would have stalled entire projects if left to chance. Ryan introduced her at industry events as the one who keeps things organized. She had stopped correcting him 2 years in. The financial imbalance was quieter, but just as heavy. Ryan controlled the business accounts. Her income, substantial, if anyone had examined it honestly, was treated as supplemental, decorative. He didn't do this maliciously. That was the part that made it so difficult to name. He genuinely believed the version of their partnership that made him the architect and her the assistant. She spent 3 years trying to show him a different version. Then she stopped. The night it ended started quietly enough. Winter in Chicago has a particular cold. Not just the temperature, but the quality of the dark, the way the wind off the lake finds the gaps between coat and scarf. Tiana sat at the kitchen island, laptop open, coffee going cold. She was reviewing proposals for a new mixed-use development in River North. Her framework, her timeline, her contractor shortlists. 6 weeks of her work. The project was hers in every way that mattered. She was going to ask Ryan to put her name on it. Not as a favor, as a correction of the record. He came home late, tie loosened, carrying the brightness of someone who had performed well for an audience and was still coming down from it. "I want to talk to you about the River North proposal," she said. "I want my name on it. As co-developer, I built the framework, the timeline, the contractor relationships. I want credit for what I actually did." His face settled into something gentle and immovable, the expression he used when he was about to explain something to someone who didn't quite understand. "Tiana, you're incredible at what you do, but coordinating the back end isn't the same as developing. You don't build empires with spreadsheets." Something shifted in her chest, not breaking, more like a wall finally accepting the weight it had been carrying too long. "I'm not asking you to give me something I didn't earn," she said. "I'm asking you to acknowledge what I already built." He set down his glass, tilted his head. The expression didn't change. "You handle operations. That's valuable. But it's not the same seat at the table." A silence stretched between them. "Then maybe," she said, "I shouldn't be at this table." He laughed, genuinely. The laugh of a man who found the idea so improbable it struck him as charming. "You'll be back. 6 months, tops. You don't know how the real world works without me." She packed the way someone packs when they've been mentally doing it for 2 years, methodically, without theater. Her work files, her grandmother's jewelry, her laptop, her passport, 2 suitcases. Ryan was still in the kitchen when the elevator came. She heard the television click on as she waited. He had already moved on, certain she would come back. The doors closed. 24 floors down, Tiana noticed something she hadn't felt in years. She wasn't afraid. Not of the uncertainty, not of the financial precariousness, not of the blank space where a known life had just been. She was done asking Ryan Caldwell to see her. Somewhere in the back of her mind, not yet urgent, not yet fully formed, was the quiet knowledge of everything she had built that he had never bothered to notice. That knowledge, it turned out, was worth considerably more than he imagined. The first thing Tiana noticed about Atlanta was the light. Not warm, exactly. March still had an edge, but softer than Chicago. Broader. The kind of light that suggested possibility without demanding anything from you. She had rented a small furnished apartment in Midtown. One bedroom, a desk by the window, the kind of place that felt temporary in a way she was beginning to find deeply reassuring. Temporary meant she hadn't decided yet. And not having decided yet meant everything was still ahead. For the first 2 months, she took contract consulting work, risk assessment, operational planning, project feasibility analysis. Everything she had been doing for years, now billed under her own name for the first time. The income was unpredictable. Some weeks were fine. Some weeks, she ate a lot of rice and reviewed her savings. But the work reminded her of something important. She was very, very good at this. Not good the way Ryan meant when he said she handled operations. Good in the way that mattered. The kind that got deals through regulatory approval on the first submission, that caught zoning variances before they became six-figure delays. During her years behind Ryan's developments, she had built a network he knew nothing about. Marcus Delgado, the city planning director who trusted her read on contractors because she had never once steered him wrong. Billionaire, the compliance attorney who had saved 2 of Ryan's projects from violations Tiana had flagged before they became violations. James Worthington, the investor who had nearly walked away from a Ryan deal, until Tiana restructured the risk presentation and brought him back to the table. Ryan knew James. He had no idea what Tiana had done to keep him. These were not Ryan's relationships. They were hers, built over years of showing up prepared, following through, and being the kind of professional others trusted because she had never given them a reason not to. The call came on a Wednesday in April. Marcus Delgado, now consulting for a private group in Atlanta, had heard she was in the city. He had forwarded her name to the executive team at Urban Core Development Group, a firm specializing in large-scale urban redevelopment. They needed someone with deep operational expertise and strong institutional relationships. They need someone who actually knows what she's doing, Marcus said. I told them that was you. The interview was unlike anything she'd experienced at Ryan's company. The Urban Core executives asked hard questions: risk stratification, public-private partnership navigation, cross-jurisdictional contractor management. They asked her to walk through a specific crisis and resolution. She walked them through the River North framework, the one Ryan had presented to the Westfield Group without her name on it. The room went quiet when she finished. How long have you been doing this? Asked the lead executive, Carolyn Mays. Officially, as a contractor, 3 months, Tiana said. Unofficially, behind someone else's name, about 5 years. Carolyn studied her. Then she nodded. We'd like to offer you a senior project coordination role. She was promoted within 4 months. The trigger, a zoning classification discrepancy she found during a routine document audit on her 3rd week. Left unaddressed, it would have triggered an 18-month mandatory environmental review and cost the company between $3 and $5 million. She flagged it. The correction was filed within the week. Carolyn called it the single most valuable 48 hours of work the company had seen in 2 years. By November, Tiana Brooks was Director of Development Oversight. She sat on the Executive Review Committee. She held final approval authority on the company's largest incoming project proposals. She was also, for the first time in 5 years, building a life that was entirely her own. Ryan didn't struggle immediately. He expanded 2 new luxury developments on the south side, leveraged aggressively against his existing portfolio, projecting forward with the confidence of a man who had never seriously been wrong about himself. Interest rates were rising. His investors noted this. He dismissed it as caution in people who lacked his vision. The South Side projects ran expensive. The contractors on one, the same contractors Tiana had flagged as high risk, ran over budget by 11% in 6 months. The second project failed a Phase 2 inspection. Ryan needed one large contract to stabilize his cash position. He began looking at Atlanta. Urban Core, he had heard, was moving forward on a massive West Side redevelopment. 9 figures. The kind of contract that could save a company. The kind that had to clear an executive approval process. By October, Ryan Caldwell's world had begun to narrow. Quietly. The way financial trouble always begins, in the gap between what projects were supposed to earn and what they were actually earning. The Southside developments were stalled. His primary investor, a wealth management group out of Evanston, had requested a call. "We're pausing future capital commitments pending a portfolio review," the fund manager said, in the careful, bloodless language of institutional withdrawal. Ryan needed the Atlanta contract. He needed it the way a man needs air when he's been underwater longer than he planned. Caldwell Development Group submitted its proposal in the second week of October. Ryan had spent 3 weeks on it. A specialized consulting firm sharpened the financial narrative. Letters of recommendation from 2 aldermen and a former city planning official were attached. He reviewed every page himself. He was confident. This was the kind of proposal that turned things around. He submitted it and waited. The Urban Core Executive Review Committee met on the third Thursday of every month. The room was climate-controlled and quiet, the kind of space where large decisions were made with small movements. A turned page, a pen set down, a slight tightening around the eyes. Tiana had reviewed 14 proposals before she reached the one with the Caldwell Development Group letterhead. She saw the name and went still. 3 seconds, maybe 4. Long enough for something to move through her chest. Not anger, not satisfaction, not the electricity of anticipated revenge. Just recognition. The name of a chapter she had already closed, appearing unexpectedly in one she was currently writing. She set the proposal in the review stack, assigned it a case number, moved to the next one. The following morning, she ordered a full financial and performance audit of Caldwell Development Group. Standard procedure. Every proposal above a certain threshold received the same treatment. This was number 48. She didn't expedite it. She didn't slow it down. Same analyst team. Same criteria. The report came back in 8 days. High debt exposure relative to current asset value. Confirmed. 2 projects with delayed completion. Confirmed. 1 under a municipal halt order. Confirmed. 3 contractor disputes on file with the Illinois Licensing Board. 2 settled, 1 pending. Investor withdrawal communication on file, confirmed. The conclusion was clear. Caldwell Development Group lacked the financial stability to carry a 9-figure contract. A mid-project default at this scale would cost Urban Core not just capital, but timeline, contractor relationships, and years of municipal goodwill. Tiana wrote her recommendation in 3 lines. Proposal declined. Financial instability presents unacceptable project risk. Recommend reevaluation contingent on debt restructuring and resolution of outstanding contractor disputes. She signed it. She moved to the next file. Ryan received the notification on a Tuesday. Subject: Urban Core Development Group. Proposal status update. Body: thank you for your submission to the Urban Core Executive Review Committee. After careful evaluation, we regret to inform you that your proposal has not been selected for further consideration. 2 sentences. No explanation. No feedback. No name. He called his attorney, his investor contact, the consulting firm he'd paid to strengthen the financial narrative. No one had answers. The decision was internal. There was no appeal. The door was closed. He had no idea who had closed it. Financial collapse rarely happens all at once. It happens in stages, each one slightly worse than the last, separated by just enough time to almost convince yourself you've stabilized. Stage 1. The Evanston Fund formally withdrew from both Southside developments. The letter arrived in November. Polite. Final. Stage 2. The bank holding the construction loans issued a notice of concern. Not default. Not yet, but a clear signal. If the projects didn't show measurable progress within 90 days, the loans would be restructured on terms that would accelerate his costs dramatically. Stage 3. The woman he'd been seeing for the better part of a year stopped finding time for him. By January, she was direct. She needed someone whose situation was more settled. He didn't disagree. The Chicago commercial development world was not large, and the people in it talked. The whispers about Caldwell Development Group began in December. Nothing on the record, just the quiet recalibration of professional association that happens when people aren't sure what a relationship is worth anymore. Contractors became unavailable. The trade publication that had profiled him 2 years prior declined to include him in their annual Developers to Watch feature. He noticed all of it. He didn't know how to stop any of it. It was a Tuesday morning in February. He was scrolling through a commercial real estate aggregator, the same one he checked every morning, looking for news on the Urban Core Atlanta project, trying to understand who had gotten what he needed. The headline was straightforward. Urban Core breaks ground on $340 million Atlanta West Corridor redevelopment. Oversight Director Tiana Brooks leads historic mixed-use project. There was a photograph. Tiana stood at a podium in front of a construction site, dark blazer, mid-sentence, the focused, authoritative expression of someone exactly where they were supposed to be. The caption identified her as Urban Core's Director of Development Oversight. Ryan stared at the photograph for a long time. He thought about River North, the framework she'd built, the one he'd presented to the Westfield Group as his own work. The Evanston investor who had nearly walked away 3 years ago and then, inexplicably, returned to the table. The contractor on the Wicker Park development who had delivered on time and under budget, and told Ryan, when asked, that it was because your operations person is very straightforward to work with. He thought about how many times he had said, the one who keeps things organized. He thought about the night she'd asked to put her name on the proposal. Her expression, not hurt, not angry, certain. The expression of someone who already knew the answer but was asking anyway, one final time, as a formality. He thought about the laugh. There was no shame quite like the shame of understanding. Too late. Exactly what you had dismissed. In early March, Caldwell Development Group filed for financial restructuring. The Tribune ran it in the business section with the same neutrality applied to all such filings. Operations suspended. Certain assets to be liquidated. Ryan sat in his 24th floor condo, the same kitchen island, the same view, and looked at Tiana Brooks's photograph until he understood, fully and without ambiguity, exactly what he had done. And he knew, with the same certainty he had once applied to his confidence, exactly who he needed to ask for help. April settled into Atlanta slowly, patiently, the way good things tend to arrive. The azaleas along Tiana's street had been blooming for 2 weeks. She had bought the house in October. For bedrooms, a back porch overlooking a garden, she was still learning, enough quiet that she could hear herself think. She was home on a Thursday evening, reviewing notes from her monthly mentorship session. 7 young women in operations and development, ranging from 23 to 31. She had cleared the dishes, made tea, and was working through notes on what each of them needed most. She heard the rain before she heard the doorbell. Steady, soft. Atlanta rain settling in for the evening. The doorbell rang once. She set down her notes, walked to the door, and looked through the glass panel before she opened it. Ryan Caldwell stood on her porch. He was thinner, not the thinness of illness, but the specific kind that comes from months under a weight you can't put down. His jacket was too light for the rain. His hair was damp. He looked like a man who had driven a long way to stand in front of a door he wasn't certain would open. She opened it. Tiana, quieter than she'd ever heard him. The particular quiet of someone who has let go of something heavy and is still adjusting to its absence. Ryan. She didn't step aside. She stood in the doorway, not unkind, but honest. He glanced past her. The warm light inside, the flowers on the hall table, the composed quality of a life that was working. Then he looked back at her. I saw the article. I've been trying to figure out what to say since February. I know. A beat. The rain continued. I need your help. No framing, no professional gloss. Just the plain sentence. I'm restructuring. I need a reference from someone in the development world respected enough to offset. He stopped. I know what I'm asking. Tell me what else, she said. What? You didn't drive from Chicago to ask me for a reference letter. Something crossed his face, the expression of a man being seen clearly and knowing it. An introduction. Someone in Atlanta who might consider a restructured partnership if it came from you. And he looked at the doormat, then back up. And I owed you this. Coming here. In person. I owed you the face-to-face version of what I should have said a long time ago. I thought you needed me, he said. I genuinely believed it. I thought the business ran because of my relationships and my judgment, and you managed the back end. I thought that was the accurate version. I know you believed it, she said. That was never the part that hurt. The part that hurt was that you never looked more carefully. You never asked. 5 years, and you never once said, Tiana, what do you actually do in there? How does this work? What happens if you're not here? You just assumed. And the assumption was comfortable, so you kept it. He nodded, not fighting it, just receiving it. I didn't fail without you. The words were even, unhurried. Not a wound, a fact. You just never knew who I was. She went inside and came back with a business card. His name is David Osei. He runs a development advisory group out of Buckhead. He works specifically with restructuring companies that have a viable core, helping them identify what's salvageable and build a realistic path forward. Tell him I sent you. He'll take the call. Ryan took the card with both hands. He turned it over. He looked back at her. Why? She considered the question because it deserved a real answer. Because I'm not interested in your collapse. I never was. I was interested in my life. And my life is fine. She paused. David is good. If there's something worth saving in your company, he'll tell you honestly. And if there isn't, he'll tell you that too, which will also be useful. He stood there holding the card the way you hold something you aren't sure you deserve. Thank you. 2 words. Undecorated. The words of a man who had arrived at the end of the version of himself that didn't need to say them. Take care of yourself, Ryan. She closed the door. She stood in her hallway with her hand still resting on the door. Rain outside, steady and unhurried. The house warm. The flowers on the hall table, ranunculus, pale peach, from Saturday's farmer's market, smelled exactly as they should. She thought about the elevator in Chicago. The doors closing. 24 floors of descent with 2 suitcases and the extraordinary, clarifying sensation of having nothing decided yet. She thought about the quieter things she'd built since. Not the title, not the project, not the recognition that had come to feel like a natural extension of doing good work. The mentorship dinners. The back porch garden. The quality of waking up each morning with no apology to make for who she was. She hadn't won because Ryan lost. That had never been the point. She had won the night she stopped asking for his permission to take up space in her own life. Everything after that was just the natural consequence of knowing, finally, and without ambiguity, who she actually was. She picked up her notes. She finished her tea. She went back to work.
Thank you for watching this story to the end. If you enjoyed this story, you will surely love the next one. It's as crazier and more intriguing as you can ever imagine. So do check it out. Subscribe, like, and click on the image showing on your screen right now to watch the next one.